Hey, bitch. I'm Josh.
I'm Dylan.
I'm Stacy.
And I'm Krystian.
And we're
Humor, Haunts, and Homicide.
It's episode 2 for our season 3 special for you. I am so happy to be back. Oh my gosh, my ladies and gent, what has been going on in the world of you?
We went and got haircuts today. It's been a very productive day. Went to Sam's Club, got some errands done, cleaned house. It's been a great week. What about you guys?
Oh my gosh, we started spring cleaning already, our basement, getting things thrown out, gone through finally, and getting ready to start with spring and then end up with summer, which is Krystian's favorite, not mine.
I love summer. It's my favorite.
Me too. However, Florida summer is a whole different animal.
Yeah, it's completely different than Michigan summers.
However, it's kind of weirdly the same intense humidity.
They don't have hurricanes like we do. I mean,
well, that's... Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, I don't think I would know what to do.
No, I'd rather have a bunch of snow than a bunch of hurricanes floating around everywhere.
Floating around.
Because when you have a hurricane and you're told to evacuate because of being in a flood zone, you need to leave. I mean,
right.
we've been told to leave before, living my entire life in Florida, because you don't know what you're going to come back to. Some people come back to nothing. Some people come back to everything. Some people come back to minimal damage. Luckily, we spared last year with 2 hurricanes within 2 weeks of each other. That was fun.
You also have to worry about looting, too, because people know that people leave their homes during hurricanes, so that's a perfect opportunity for them to break into their homes. And your alarm system usually doesn't have power, so what are you going to do? You don't really have the opportunity to watch your home when you're away, unless you have battery-operated systems, like Simply Safe.
It's crazy. I really didn't even think of that perspective.
Same.
Then you don't know if your home's been flooded, so you're not even just worried about the hurricane, the winds, and all that. You're worried about your home, and if the water surge has rose to the point of no return. That's actually what happened a lot for my clients, because where I work is on a coastal line. So my location somehow didn't even get touched during our last hurricane, but everything around it was completely fucking destroyed. It's really sad, actually. Very terrible.
Those poor people.
And they're mostly retirees because they decided that they wanted the American dream. They wanted to go live on the water, buy their boats, and just enjoy the sunset. Well, there's a backlash to paradise.
And it's called Mother Nature.
It is. And we actually didn't have anything hit this area for the last 30 years. So it was a big anomaly to get smacked twice in a row. It was pretty fucked up.
Wow, yeah.
Try selling a house between 2 hurricanes. It was a fun time.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine.
Yeah. It was stressful. We got through it, but we were staying with my parents and they're in an evacuation zone, so we had to leave. We were gone for a week.
Oh man. Where'd they end up going?
We all stayed at the same hotel. We stayed in Orlando right outside of Disney, and we didn't have power for 4 or 5 days. We had to throw away food. The house had to be clean. It was a mess. But we didn't lose anything compared to some people that I know that are selling their houses right now and just cutting their losses because they don't want to rebuild to have to do it all over again.
I mean, you can't really blame them at that point. Thank goodness. We usually lose power too, like a couple times every winter, but this winter we had a lot of snow, more than I can remember, to be honest. And luckily we didn't lose power. I mean, the most you have to worry about is keeping your propane filled out here in Michigan. The winter wasn't that bad. Thank goodness.
It's interesting coming from a Florida's perspective from being away from Michigan for 10 years. And you can tell me if it's true or not, and maybe it's just me being away, but everyone always tells me that the Michigan winters are no longer as bad as they were when I was living there. I mean, climate change is real, I know, but What is your thoughts?
I have to agree. I feel like it was way more harsh back in the day when you were up here, but now it's kind of mellowed out. Like I said, the most we get is a bunch of snow, and it was probably about -21, like couple nights, a week or whatever. But it's doable for sure, at least for us, because like if the power does go out, we have a fireplace that we can utilize. We have stocked up wood for the winter just in case. So we're definitely prepared. Krystian makes sure of that.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic.
Love a good fire.
I agree with you. And speaking of fire, for me, I have great news today that most Americans, if they're gay, not exactly this bunch, but most of them would appreciate Lady Gaga's return to music in her newest Mayhem album. I feel like I've had a spiritual experience as I stayed up at midnight refreshing my phone on Amazon Music waiting for it to happen. Yes, that's right. I did. And Dylan fell asleep on my shoulder. It was so cute as I'm sitting there listening and blaring Gaga. And I don't give a damn. I don't work tomorrow. I'm going to get on with my Gaga self. And then I started crying a couple songs in. It was a thing.
My gosh. So many emotions.
Yeah, so that's how gay I am. Now the world knows.
That's good that you enjoy it.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are gay, Casey Anthony has a TikTok.
How incredibly stupid.
I don't understand.
She wants to be an advocate.
That's what I meant by speaking of gay. She wants to be an LGBTQ advocate. She wants to be an advocate for missing children. Let's dive in. Let's dive in.
I don't need one. I don't need an advocate.
Gays and everyone already have a lot of things going on. We don't need to add to the mess.
And it was a nationwide case, and it was actually a Florida case. She, for 31 days, didn't report her child missing, and she called the police and then tried to pin it on her dad as to why her child was missing. It was a whole investigation for years, and it's still ongoing with her trying to be an advocate and trying to come back into social media. And the people that want to follow her and support her, I'm sorry, I will never understand. I mean, she got away with murder. She killed her child.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting take. I think it was an interview with her lawyer that he basically said, she's just in it for the money. That's all that this is about. It's just another publicity stunt to try her best to stay relevant. And I mean, let's face it, even with celebrities and famous people, bad, media is still media. It still keeps people talking about her and keeping her relevant. I just think it's a waste of space, but that's just my opinion.
I couldn't even believe it was her that we had seen. I was like, how is this woman even out of prison?
I think it was a Peacock special about her retribution and coming back into society and working as a legal, air quote, advocate for her attorney or former attorney. I don't actually remember which one. And a part of me was torn because I didn't want to give her ratings because I know she's got to make some sort of spiff off the show. But the other part of me is like, oh man, that's good TV. And I need to know what the fuck this bitch has to say. And that side of me took over, so I watched it.
I was on TikTok the other day, and I was just scrolling through, and she came up on my For You page, and I'm like, ooh, what? I'm sorry, I hit the block button so quick. I want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, same. I didn't know what was going on until it was like video after video of people talking about Casey Anthony. I was like, what's happening? So...
Yeah, another interesting fun fact is in that Peacock documentary that she did about herself, which is basically an autobiography, journalistic view of her narcissistic shit, she talked about how she is a liar and a documented liar. And several therapists have told her that she is a pathological liar. And yet somehow we're supposed to believe that she is still innocent. Ladies and gentlemen.
But not only that, the scary part is that she's advocating for other groups of people, too, that are going to start, trying to believe what she has to say when it's just lie after lie. And the scary part is she's already said that to you. Verbatim, so that's crazy.
If she tries to pull this Lady Dexter shit, I swear it's going to be a matter of time before she's caught up in something else.
Yep. Definitely agree to that for sure.
Very messy. I will not fathom why people want to support. I mean, people want to support anything, whatever, but to support someone that that killed a child, was missing for 31 days, I'm sorry. I can read between the lines.
Right. Exactly. No thanks.
Yeah, no. So I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was a shit show, and we like to talk about shit shows here at Humor, Haunts, and Homicide. That's what fuels our fire. Speaking of things that fuel fire, you want to talk about our little craziness that we have as far as our virtual rituals and gaming world?
Yes, I think actually recording one of those sessions would be freaking hilarious for people to actually listen to us playing Mario Party and screaming at one another.
Would be hilarious.
So everybody doesn't realize is that, yes, we've mentioned before, at least I have in the past, that we do a lot of gaming. And for those of you that don't really know Stacy, Krystian, and Dylan that well yet, you now know that they also are pretty big Switch gamers. And we do a lot of virtual Mario Party gaming together. And I will say, we start off going into that session as best of friends. The love is there. We have a game ritual talk, just catching up, what's happened the last couple of days, the week, the shit show, all that. And then we get into the gaming, and then it starts to get a little crazy. Sometimes there's expletives thrown. Sometimes there's death threats. Sometimes there's hanging up. I've hung up plenty of times. I don't know about you ladies. I think you've hung up on me a few times.
Oh yeah, plenty.
Yeah, but nothing as bad as freaking being your partner in a mini game and you're not even participating. That's the worst.
You wouldn't even roll.
Yeah, at all. It was super annoying.
For me and Dylan,
childlike moments like that.
So what she is referencing, ladies and gentlemen, and audience out there, is that in this game of Mario Party, you can it's made to fuck each other over.
Yeah.
So you can steal each other's stars, and the stars are what actually fuel your ability to win the game. You have to get the most stars by the end of the game, and then you have a session where the game announces bonus stars for how you overall performed in certain categories within the game. Ultimately, by the end of that, whoever gets the most of all of it cumulatively wins. Well, Stacy decided she wanted to be, I would say, a pretty big bitch, in my opinion. I'm just going to put that out there. And she stole my star for, in my opinion, again, no reason at all. Obviously, she thinks she had a valid reason. I guess we're all entitled to our own wrong opinions. However, we had a little bit of a tiff. We always find a way to come back. We've been besties for 23 plus years. It's a lot of fun. That's just how we love and hate each other at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. You have to have a little sprinkle of hatred in there because, that's really what kept us going for 20 plus years.
You want to talk about the time we got into a fight in the middle of class?
Which time?
True. So Stacy and I, while we were the best of friends, we also fought like we were brother and sister.
Yeah.
So I don't even remember what it was about, truthfully. It was so long ago. But I do remember that it was either Stacy or I. One of us took our desk and we took it up and slammed it in the middle of the class in front of everybody. And I did the same thing. And I took mine and I was like, oh yeah, you're going to come for me in the middle of everybody? It was bad. We kicked us out of class. We were puffing our chest and we were going to fist fight each other in front of everybody. And I don't even know what it was. Nothing could have been that serious.
Not to mention you're so much taller than me. So I'm screaming at you like that.
And also, what am I going to do? Beat a woman in the front of everybody? That would have went over well for me, I'm sure.
We were so dramatic.
Oh, God, were we ever? God, we were 16, 17, right?
Yeah. Forever ago.
Oh,
Literally.
The times.
All right. I know you've all been waiting to know what my story is about, but Josh, I know you've been waiting very impatiently, but you made it. The wait is over. Are you ready to hear it?
Oh, my God, what is it?
All right, I decided since I'm a Michigander, my story would take place in Michigan. I'm going to talk about Michigan's first state prison in Jackson, Michigan, and the hauntings that occurred there. But first, here's how the prison came to be the first state prison in Michigan. In 1837, Michigan became the 26th state, and the legislature appointed a committee to choose a site for the first prison. Jackson, Ann Arbor, Lansing, Marshall, Napoleon, and Adrian all presented proposals to the newly formed state government, but Jackson won because 60 acres of land was donated to the state by 5 Jackson businessmen. These businessmen were seeking a cheap labor force for their factories and farms, and this was their way of doing just that. 60 acres was more than enough acreage for the prison cell blocks, the farms, and the factories. The prison was a wooden fort on the north side of downtown Jackson and housed 35 inmates within its makeshift walls. Inmates were paid pennies per day and worked under a quota system. Privileges were lost and severe punishments were given to inmates who did not reach their quota. 5.5 cents from each inmate were kept in an account for them to use when they got released and looking for work. I guess that was nice, right? And 28 cents, of course, went to the state government. I know they didn't have a choice in how much they made, but I would rather sit and rot in my cell than make pennies a day when most of it goes to the state. What about you guys?
I mean, I feel like we're doing that now, right?
Kinda, it feels like it.
Yeah.
Uncle Sam always wants his cut.
Yeah, he does.
Always.
Apparently, he wants all that cut.
Right.
Every penny he can get.
Literally.
Uh-huh.
In 1846, Michigan was the first state to abolish capital punishment, but the punishment would be life in solitary confinement. So instead of a 3-second hanging, prisoners got a 6 to 8 month death sentence. Now one of the most haunted prisons here in Michigan, built almost 200 years ago. The prison opened in 1839, and by 1882, the prison housed around 2,000 inmates and was once the world's largest walled prison.
Wow.
Jackson Prison was known for prisoner neglect, abuse, and torture, and for whatever reason, their prisoners were not allowed to wear underwear. Could you imagine? Because I couldn't. I'm wearing underwear.
Yeah, that's weird. Why? That's weird.
I would say
don't
if you think about it in terms of suicide, the underwear itself could be a tool to kill yourself, and that is just too much of a reward for these people.
Yeah.
Or being killed by someone else's underwear would suck.
Oh my God. The state replaced the facility's wooden walls with brick in 1842, making it the first permanent structure with 25-foot walls around the entire prison. They did this because in June of 1840, 10 prisoners escaped and terrorized the city of Jackson for 2 years.
Jeez.
They were able to escape by overpowering 2 guards and dug their way out of the prison cabins. Known as the Jackson Robber Gang, they robbed banks, beat a farmer with his own gun, and left him on the road. The leader of the Jackson Robber Gang was killed by another farmer, and all but 2 escapees were eventually caught. What would you guys do if 10 prisoners came through your town?
I would definitely anchor down the house with everything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I have a fun story for you, if you're willing to hear it.
Oh yes. I love a good story.
So I used to be a manager for a pretty large financial institution. One of the perks was dealing with a lot of crazy people, insert sarcasm right there. I would say that on this particular day of dealing with some crazies, I'm looking across the street where there happened to be a gas station. And then probably not even a quarter mile down the other way, you could see a police station, and right behind the police station was a prison. When I'm looking across at the gas station, I'm looking and there is around 15 different cop cars. No idea why, but it's in the middle of Largo, Florida, and that's kind of, we call it Larghetto as a little term here. And I'm looking at this guy who's standing outside the door of where I work, and he's got his hand in his pocket, and he's keeping it in his pocket, but just one hand. And he's just staring out in front, looking at this gas station where all these cop cars are sitting. And I'm like, who the hell is this person? They come into the branch. They're trying to make a withdrawal. We obviously couldn't let them do it because they were not providing us ID. Well, you need ID in a bank. That's kind of
right.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, sorry. I just thought you guys knew me. I'm here all the time. Trying to play it cool. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I left at my car. I'll be right back. Well, then he just ran off. Well, come to find out, the cops ended up coming in later on and were looking for the person that had escaped the prison that afternoon, which is why there were so many cars looking for him. The reason he had his hand in his pocket was because he had a handcuff still on one of his hands.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason he didn't have ID was because he was incarcerated.
Oh my gosh. They had all shit.
Yeah. Well, luckily he didn't have a weapon. I mean, I guess the handcuff could have been a pistol weapon type of reaction to the head, but ultimately he was nice. At least he wasn't mean. I knew something was off and I didn't want to mess with him. And I was in my office at the time. After I realized what was kind of going on, I was like, ooh, I better kind of watch this. And then he left, and then the cops ended up getting him. So ultimately, story was over. But we took the precautions that we thought we had to do to be safe, and we did, and everything was great. But ultimately, yeah, how insane, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, that's quick thinking on your end, so kudos to you for that. But that's super scary.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So the main campus of Jackson Prison closed in 2007 and is now the Armory Arts Village. Well, are now apartments and art studios for local artists, and the artists have experienced some pretty scary hauntings. A lot of them have said there is no question that the prisoners and prison staff have never left. People have experienced so many different hauntings, like mysterious cold spots, hearing music from the old prison band, strange smells and chills throughout their bodies. Artists have seen paintings fall from the walls. In the basement, there's poltergeist activity, where people hear banging and footsteps. The mess hall is another hot spot for paranormal activity. Some have seen the ghost of the sheriff's wife wandering around and can hear noises, footsteps, and inexplicable touches by unseen entities. You all know that shit gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Please don't touch me. I will listen to you throwing stuff. Don't touch me.
Yeah, that has to be the scariest thing. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What if it was just like a small little whisper?
No.
A whisper? Okay.
I can handle that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just don't touch me.
Yeah, no touchy.
Or don't watch me while I'm sleeping. Thank you.
Right.
I mean, watch all you want. Just don't touch me.
I've seen videos of girls' hairs being like lifted and dropped or tugged. No, don't touch me.
The thing that gets me the most is the indentation of the bed, of something sitting on the bed or something. No, that creeps me the hell out. Get off me. Get off my bed.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's ghost children, because children don't listen in general. But then you add the mean, hateful, filthy, disrespectful ghost, and then it's over. You know, there's something chilling to me about that.
Ghost babies are the worst.
Hate a ghost baby.
Yeah. Ghost crotch goblins.
Ew. So besides those ones, the underground tunnels and bare cells in solitary confinement are said to be the most active for paranormal activity. I wonder why. Rioting can be heard in the underground tunnels, and a streak of light can be seen moving in solitary confinement, along with hearing voices, screams, and calls for help. How about a spooky story from the prison gravedigger and a couple notable criminals that stayed at the Jackson prison?
Nice.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yes, please.
All right.
Yes.
Gravedigger goes first. So the gravedigger's mother told him when he was born he would be able to communicate with spirits and the dead. How would you guys feel if your mother told you guys you would be able to talk to the dead?
No, I don't want to talk to the dead. They're
Yeah, no.
No, I'd be too nervous, too scaredy.
Yeah.
It's like too much power.
Yes. When he turned 7 years old, his mother's words came true. He had many visitors, such as witches and warlocks, that would sit at the end of his bed, paralyzing him so he couldn't move or scream. Demons had tried tricking him into doing something evil, like sacrificing their poor family cat. Poor kitty.
Kitty.
He worked from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. digging graves outside the compound of the prison. Before digging graves, he would sprinkle a circle of salt around the grave and drive 6-inch stakes into the ground to protect himself from being attacked or possessed by hostile spirits. The cemetery where prisoners were buried was called Boot Hill Cemetery. Anyone want to guess why it was called Boot Hill?
Why?
Because the prisoners were buried at the top of the hill with their boots on.
What?
Okay, tell me more.
All right, he dug 6-foot holes for a single corpse until Boot Hill became overcrowded and he had to double bunk the graves. Prisoners that were held in the 16 block unit could see old wooden crosses and deteriorated headstones outside their windows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no thanks. During the gravedigger's lunch breaks, he enjoyed walking around Boot Hill reading headstones, names, date, and prisoner numbers. He sometimes heard screams for mercy from the dead prisoners he believed were brutally killed inside Jackson Prison, their souls refusing to cross over to an afterlife. On rainy workdays, he would place plastic over a 6-foot hole and hide in the grave. There's no fucking way that I would be doing that. Would you guys do that?
No.
Well, I mean,
I'm not digging graves.
I'm not getting in a grave.
Yeah, no.
What are the benefits, though? Let's talk about that.
I feel like the only one would be that you're not going to get wet from the rain.
Yeah, I plan on being cremated when I pass away, and I don't want to be in a grave, so I'm going to pass on that.
Dead
Thank
or
you.
alive?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
No, thanks.
no, I'm good on that.
All right, I agree. 100%.
All right. While in the hole, he could hear ghosts make cell calls and haunt the cell blocks, seeking revenge. One late night, he witnessed a silhouette with a rope around its neck hanging from a bunk in 4 block. 4 and 16 block were said to be the most haunted. Prisoner officials had to demolish them and had an exorcism. And an exorcism was required before rebuilding 4 block. Now, audience, please don't do what I'm about to say. No one wants to start playing with The Walking Dead, okay? The gravedigger had said having the power of communicating with the dead let him reveal a 50-year-old secret the spirits told him. Before you go to sleep, place under your bed, under your head, a letter to the dead person you want to contact. Also place a shiny dime over the letter for the underworld gatekeeper. Then place the letter on top of a clear 8-ounce glass, half filled with pure, clear water. With this act, you will resurrect the dead, and they will come. Would you want to resurrect the dead? Because I surely would not.
No, and why are you involving a 1, 2, 3 manual to do so? That's weird.
Look, technology has advanced, honeys. I mean, we got some new things to help us out.
Yeah, that's weird. Please don't do that.
If you could bring back one person, the most important person that you've lost, would you do it? If they were the exact same person, or maybe they were even better because they had time to reflect and they could still see upon your life. So they're not an evil zombie version of that person. They are really a better version of that person. Would you do it?
No, I've seen Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock. It never works out like that.
That's a great movie.
That's why I'm given the scenario of there is no hidden magic. That person is that great version of that self.
No, I think once someone passes, they are in the place that, I know it sounds awful, but the place where they need to be. Like,
yes.
I mean, if it's your time to go, I mean, it's, you know what? All right, peace, I'm out. You know.
I mean, we're millennials. Has, like, freaking Final Destination not mean anything to us right now? Like, it's gonna happen regardless.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, here's a couple notable criminals that were locked up in the Jackson prison. Prisoner Sarah Haviland. Female prisoners were at the Michigan State Prison with men up until 1882.
What?
Sarah poisoned her own children because she couldn't feed them. Yet inside the prison, she became the much-beloved caregiver to the warden's children, who at the time lived at the prison. The next one, the Purple Gang. Jackson Prison and State Senator Warren G. Hooper murder. About to testify before a grand jury, State Senator Warren was shot on January 11th, 1945, on his way home. It was believed to be a professional hit by Detroit's Purple Gang, who at the time virtually had their way in the Jackson prison. Attorney General John R. Detmers theorized that Hooper's murderer had slipped out of the prison to commit the crime and return to rest easy with the perfect alibi. How crazy. No
wow.
words.
That's a lot to take in, that's for sure.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my story about the first state prison in Michigan.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, a really good one.
Whenever we do visit, hopefully maybe hear from some ghosts. I know maybe some of you may not want to hear from the ghosts, but some of us may like to.
Hearing from them, yes.
Yeah, we're open to that for sure.
Yep.
Just don't touch me.
Just don't touch me.
Yeah.
No touchy.
No me gusta.
So for the ghost spandex.
Right.
Or maybe they won't have them because they never allowed them to wear them.
Yep, they weren't even allowed to wear them.
And maybe the ghost will come up to you and be like, "Where's my spandex?"
Oh my gosh.
How amazing. Great job.
Yes, great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I went with a true crime this time. My story talks about Kelly Cochran. She's Michigander. Kelly Cochran's story is one that challenges and reaches into the darkest corners of human behavior. Now known as Devil Woman of Michigan, Kelly's life took a sinister turn when a twisted marital pact led to the brutal murders of her lover, Chris Reagan, and her husband, Jason Cochran. Her tale is a chilling exploration of manipulation, betrayal, and the lengths to which someone can conceal their secrets. From her seemingly ordinary beginnings in Indiana to the shocking revelations that unfolded in Michigan, Kelly's actions have left a trail of devastation and unanswered questions. Picture it. The pair grew up next door to each other in their hometown of Indiana and got married after high school. After working for 10 years, Jason ended up hurting his back, and Kelly had to then take on the role of provider. Since marijuana is legal in Michigan, that seemed to alleviate Jason's pain. They decided to move to Iron River, Michigan. I don't know if you guys know that that's in the Upper Peninsula, back in 2013. Then, at the time, 33-year-old Kelly began working at a manufacturing plant that produced parts for naval ships. While employed there, Kelly ends up meeting 53-year-old Christopher Reagan, who served in the Air Force and grew up in Detroit, Michigan. Chris ended up moving from Detroit to actually be with his girlfriend at the time, Terry O'Donnell, who was a teacher, and the pair were currently dating. Gossip amongst their co-workers started because soon after Kelly and Chris met, they started taking their lunch breaks together and were often seen with one another a lot of the time. Dun, dun, dun.
Scandal alert.
Right. Not even trying to make it a secret, right? So Terry actually stated in an interview that she ended things with Chris when she had decided to go on a family vacation for about a month. She was talking to Chris about it. Terry actually found out that Chris was making other plans with Kelly while she was going to be away for a month. Terry confronted Chris about his plans, and then Chris told her it was just sex and that he was in love with Terry, that it wasn't a big deal. Right. So Terry ends up leaving Chris because of this, and the two decided to call it quits. So that brings us to October 24th, 2014. This is a year later. Terry's the one who calls in a missing persons report on Chris Reagan because she hadn't heard from him in 10 days. Terry said that when she went to Chris's house, that the house was a complete mess, that his cell phone was missing. Once the police found Chris's car that was located on the other side of town, inside of the vehicle was a sticky note that had directions to a home. The directions led police to the home of Kelly and Jason Cochran. During investigations, the police talked to Kelly and Chris's coworkers, who at that time informed police that both were having an affair. Kelly admitted that she and Chris were having an affair, but that her and Jason were in an open marriage and that Jason was fine with it. However, when the police talked with Jason, he seemed to contradict what Kelly was telling them. Jason was visibly upset when police talked with having extramarital affairs. Because there was no evidence directly linking Kelly and Jason to the murder of Chris, they could not legally search the Cochrans' home until a year later in March of 2015.
My gosh. A year later.
Right.
What are you going to find a year later?
Exactly. Like, come on. Things have already been taken care of for sure.
Right. They done cleaned.
Jason and Kelly end up moving back to Indiana, conveniently.
Mm-hmm.
The police did not find a body, however, uncover a book that Jason had written where he talked about going on killing sprees and getting revenge on someone who resembled Chris.
Oh.
Oh boy, and it starts.
So even at that point, though, even with the book in hand, they still didn't, press in any further investigations with Kelly and Jason.
Mm-hmm.
So if you fast forward to February of 2016, Kelly makes a 911 call saying her husband was not breathing. Paramedics arrive to a hysterical Kelly. They soon realized that Jason was already dead. It appeared that Jason had died due to an overdose of heroin he was using to battle his back pain. After finding out of his death, Jason's friend Walter made an anonymous call to the police, begging for them to look further into Jason's death. Walter told police that he knew of the marijuana use, but did not know Jason to use harder drugs. Once the medical examiner examined Jason's body, he discovered that he did have large amounts of drugs in his system, but that Jason died of asphyxiation, not drug overdose, as expected.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it thickens.
The plot has thickened. That bitch has killed him.
Jeremy Ogden, who was one of the detectives in this case, actually came up with a plan to lure Kelly into believing that Jason had another plan should he end up dead. Jeremy actually came up with this plan because they kept trying to question Kelly and to keep bringing her back into the police headquarters to question her, and she kept saying no. She kept running away every time. She actually ended up leaving the States a few times. Jeremy wrote a letter acting as if Jason had written it himself prior to his death, and that the details told of Kelly's involvement with Chris Reagan's death. Jeremy then involved Jason's friend Walter to reach out to Kelly and make it known that Jason had given him the letter to send to the police. When Walter called Kelly to read the letter to her, at first Kelly doesn't give in and tells Walter to go ahead and send the letter. However, her story ends up changing in the end, and she ends up confessing to the murder of Chris and Jason.
Oh, you bitch. Of course she did, you fucking bitch.
While Walter was actually on the phone with her, in his vehicle, in the passenger side, was Jeremy, the detective, with another detective in the back seat, and they had her on speakerphone listening to the entire conversation. It wasn't until April of 2016 that Kelly was arrested at her cousin's home in Kentucky. The police had finally located and tracked her on her cell phone. Once in police custody, Kelly tells the detectives everything. Kelly told of how when her and Jason married back in 2002, that they had made a pact that if one of them cheated on the other, they would kill the person with whom they cheated. Kelly told police that after finding out about her and Chris's affair, that Jason forced Kelly to lure Chris to their home, and while they were having sex, Jason would shoot Chris in his head. Kelly went on to tell the police that after Jason had shot Chris in his head, Jason then instructed Kelly to remove the bullet from his head so that police could not trace it back to him, and that she did what Jason told her and took a pair of forceps and removed the bullet. The two then started to dismember Chris's body and putting the dismembered body parts into garbage bags and hiding them in the woods. Kelly ends up taking the police to the site where she said her and Jason left Chris's remains, but all the police found was a skull of Chris Reagan. And the only way that they found out that it was Chris was because the dental records matched.
This is one of the most fucked up stories I've ever heard of. But I know that you got more. I know you got more, so I'm ready to hear it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting for sure. It's just because she just knows how to manipulate. Like, even if because I watched some of her actual interviews, And even her facial expressions and her emotions, like she's just completely not in the same realm, to be honest with you. Like she's just somewhere in La La Land, and she's like trying her best to sweet talk the police, and she's just talking to them like, oh, I'm one of you guys kind of thing. Just the manipulation's so real. Kelly ended up telling police that her and Chris's affair was the only good thing going on in her life, and that she blamed her husband and decided to murder him also. Kelly's words echoed in the interview room when she told police it was revenge, and I evened the score.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
This bitch is literally the work of the devil, if you believe in the devil.
Yes.
She's trying to one up. I mean,
right. Like, it's just crazy. It's really sad, you know, that Chris was such a good guy, according to Terry, and, you know, it was just everybody loved him. He was so loved around the community, and then this happens. In 2017, this was 3 years after Chris's murder, Kelly was found guilty on 5 counts of murder for Chris, including first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. And then it was again a year later that in April of 2018, Kelly pleaded guilty for the murder of her husband, Jason Cochran, and received an additional 65 years in prison. Good. Kelly has made claims that her and Jason murdered others, but no evidence has been found to support this. Additionally, former police chief Laura Frizzo made unconfirmed allegations that both Kelly and Jason served hamburgers made from Chris Reagan's ground-up remains. This was just a theory from the local neighbors that lived next to the Cochrans in the Iron River, Michigan, and no evidence has been collected to support that theory. And so, as the tale of Kelly Cochran ends, we're left with one undeniable truth. Sometimes fact is far stranger and darker than fiction. From a twisted marital pact to a trial of chilling revelations, her story stands as a grim reminder of the shadows lurking in the most unexpected places. Thanks for joining us on this spine-tingling journey, you guys. Stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, truth has a way of uncovering itself, no matter how deeply it's buried. Until next time, stay safe and keep your doors locked.
Did she feed one of the gentlemen to her neighbors?
Okay, so what had happened was the neighbors said that the night that Chris went missing, they heard a bunch of power tools going off in the home around like 2:30 in the morning. And then it was, I think, the next day, so like I guess apparently 2 days after that, Cochrans had invited people from the community over for a huge barbecue, and they were serving like a crap load of meat. Cops didn't, I don't know, like, you got some leftover barbecue that I can test. I mean, I don't know. Nobody, you know what I mean? Like, nobody actually went in and investigated that portion of it. So right now it's just a theory, but they never found the body parts, you guys. They only found his skull.
Well, I mean, we know what kind of a sick bitch this Kelly is. I would say the possibility is very highly likely there's no evidence because she gave all of him to her neighbors.
Sick. I mean, right. That's why the story is just getting crazier and crazier. And she even admitted that her and Jason killed multiple people, but she could never give exact whereabouts that they left the bodies. She told the police that they kept memorabilias from all of the people that they murdered in a box that was like a treasure chest in the woods that it was buried. But none of that came up as of yet. She's been talking and interviewing with like 2020, like ABC News, like just Netflix, Hulu. All of these people are making documentaries on her. I'm sure that there's more that's going to come out.
Yeah, this bitch is fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to have an agreement at the beginning of your marriage that if you're going to cheat on someone, you have to kill them. And then also to have an actual like planner of everything written out. You had the intent to do it.
Right. Exactly. It was totally premeditated for sure. There's no getting away from that.
Wow, I guess you are what you eat is really a little different of a meaning now, isn't it?
Good old Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan, they've got their crazies. I mean, I know Florida has theirs, but you guys are taking the cake right now.
Right, for sure.
This episode has really brought me joy. I'm still so excited that we're all here doing this together as a little family. And I'm not going to cry, but I'm really happy. Everything's really been a lot of fun, and we've been having a lot of time to connect, more time than we probably would in any other given scenario. And we spend more time here virtually than I think we did even when we lived in the same state together. That's it's also pretty cool. So thank you for everyone for continuing the journey, join the journey with me.
Well, thank you for having us.
Of course.
Your stories were great. It's great to learn about the crazy Michigan killers and the original prison. I think your stories were fantastic, and I cannot wait to hear more.
My sources for the Michigan State Prison are michigan.org, for the Jackson Prison inmates, and for the Gravedigger, it is Prison Journalism Project.
My sources for the story of Kelly Cochran comes from oxygentruecrime.com, abcnews.go.com, and a docuseries on Prime Video, The Lady Killers, Season 1, Episode 9, The Kelly Cochran Story.
Well, I'm so glad that you enjoyed our stories.
Absolutely. I 100% enjoyed them. Thank you again. Stay tuned for next week.
Mystery never sleeps.
And neither do we.
Bye, bitches.
Humor, haunts, and homicide.